Hey everyone, Nathaniel Rumpeljans here from Nintendo Prime, and today we're going to do something a little unusual for us. We are going to respond to a specific YouTuber. The YouTuber goes by the name Blackbond, but we're not necessarily responding directly to him. We're using his video as an example of arguments being made against Nintendo Switch.
Oh my god. The Nintendo Switch and the Nintendo fanboys. It's like a match made in heaven for inferiority. Now, I don't really have a problem, per se, with the Switch, because it can definitely find its own niche, it can definitely find its own way, it can definitely be its own complement to my gaming PC. It can never be a primary gaming platform. It can never, ever be a standalone gaming platform, but...
Okay. Alright. So for him, who is considering this as a complement system, I completely understand where he's coming from when he talks about it can never be a standalone platform, it can never be a primary platform. Now, this is where I also have to take two steps back here and explain to Blackbond and anyone else out there that feels this way about an underpowered portable device. Well, it's not really underpowered for a portable device, just underpowered compared to standalone, like under TV devices, boxes basically, or even high-end gaming laptops. The idea here is that what determines whether something is your primary gaming platform or your only way of gaming, essentially, is, one, do you play a ton of games on it? I'll give you an example here in my life. I am a PC gamer. Like Blackbond here, I have a high-end gaming PC. I love gaming in 4K. I'm buying an Xbox One X as soon as I can reasonably afford it, because I need to be able to afford it plus the games I want to play on it. So, to go along with my brand new 4K TV I got for the holidays, I am all about that 4K, high-end, high frame rate life. But even I have to admit something. And I know it sounds weird because we're Nintendo Prime, so bias. I game more on my Nintendo Switch than I do on my PC. And it's not even close. It's significantly in favor of the Switch in terms of my gaming habits. Because it just has the games I want to play. Or if there are third-party games like NBA 2K18 as an example that I could get better versions of on my PC, it's because I want to be able to take it with me, and that's something I can't do with my other platforms. So it is one of those things where the Nintendo Switch absolutely can be your primary gaming platform, just like the 3DS could have been your primary gaming platform, just like the DS before it, just like when I was a kid, my primary gaming platform wasn't the NES or the SNES, it was the Game Boy. The NES and SNES were complements to my gaming experience on the Game Boy because I spent way more time playing Game Boy games. What your primary platform is the platform that you are spending the most time playing games on. So yes, absolutely Switch can be a primary gaming platform. Absolutely Switch can be your only gaming platform. For many kids growing up, Game Boy was their only gaming platform. So it's not any different today than it was growing up. This idea that it can't be your primary gaming platform because it's weak is silly. For a lot of people, their mobile phones and tablets might be their primary gaming platforms. They don't own anything else to game on, so they play a bunch of games on their mobile devices. And for someone like Blackbond, he would probably be completely dismissive of that entire notion that that's actual gaming. But a lot of those games we play on there are the same kind of games that we kind of played growing up, whether it's like Tetris-like games or turn-by-turn RPGs and all this stuff. Like these games that were like NES and Game Boy era games kind of now are on phones. Sometimes even better versions. So I'm just kind of throwing that out there that I already disagree with the notion that primary gaming platforms can't be something like Switch just because this person uses it as a complementary system. You can use Switch as a complementary system. You can use any platform as a complementary system. But the system you spend the most time gaming on would be your primary gaming platform. That's like the definition, the system that you play more games on is your primary system. So I don't know why someone would say it can't be your primary gaming system. And here's the thing, because he's going to dive into here soon about specs and about not using portability as an excuse and how games are running and blah, 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 blah. But none of that has anything to do with what makes it a primary gaming platform. For him, he might be one of those people that loves high-end specs with high running frame rates. So Switch could never be the platform he plays games on the most because he just doesn't find that as an enjoyable experience. But there's going to be tons of people out there that don't care about that, and they're going to make it their primary gaming experience. I mean, I care about that. It's already my primary gaming platform. Mostly for the games that I can't play elsewhere, not necessarily for the third parties per se. But yeah, let's just continue. We're not even very far in this video, and I already am not very pleased with what he's saying. But let's go on.
But one thing that is incredibly frustrating about the Switch is the Nintendo fanbase. Once again, damage controlling, making excuses, not holding the company accountable, and just being overall incredibly stupid, as they usually and typically are. Now, we are in 2017, people. 2017, and there's some things I expect out of my gaming in 2017. But unfortunately, Nintendo still does not want to come into the modern era. I mean, hell, they don't even want to come into 2002, but I digress. The amount of excuses and damage control is beyond pathetic. Friend codes. Nobody likes them, but hey, that's okay, because it's portable. Voice chat, almost non-existent on the Switch, but hey, that's okay, because it's portable. Crappy online that they are actually going to have the nerve to want to charge you for, but hey, it's okay, because it's portable. Graphics that are absolutely horrific and terrible. Games in 2017 are running in 600p at lower than low settings. We have first-party titles that are struggling to hit 30 frames per second while dipping down to the 300p area. Yeah, in the 300p's, people. We're talking about below standard definition. That's not sub HD, that is sub SD. But hey, it's portable. We have games that are running like absolute dog crap. But hey, it's portable. This is the most moronic damage control ever. Since when does something being portable excuse it from it being inferior?
Alright, so let's address the points he brings up here about 600p, 300p, games that are running sub 30 FPS from the first party perspective. The game he's referring to of the sub 30 FPS is actually Xenoblade Chronicles 2. But it's weird when you talk about that because he's bringing up examples like the worst of the worst, right? He doesn't want to mention Mario Kart 8 Deluxe running at 1080p and 60 FPS. He's not going to mention Breath of the Wild running at a consistent 30 FPS now that it's patched and 900p on Switch. He's not going to bring up games that don't fit his narrative. You know, Super Mario Odyssey, 900p, 60 FPS. He's not going to bring up these things because they don't support the narrative he's trying to create here. And the narrative he's creating definitely exists. There are games that run at 600p. I guess probably the biggest argument based on the tweets he's thrown up in his video is that people are arguing about Doom, because Doom runs at like 600p in handheld, and to him that's just unacceptable. And I understand that point. It is 2017 to have any games running at sub HD. Feels weird, and even have a game dip to 300p and go sub standard def is definitely not something we should deem acceptable. But what we also have to consider, and what has to be stated here, is that these games don't necessarily make up a vast majority of the library on Switch. A vast majority of the library is either first party, second party, or indie titles. And there are some quality third-party ports. I know that feels strange to say, but there is. Now, those third-party ports are still running at less than ideal settings. I'll give you an example. A third-party game that I play all the time on the platform is NBA 2K18. When it came out, it was a hot mess. Not as bad as WWE 2K18, but it was pretty bad. And now, with all the patches and all the fixes, it runs at a consistent 30 FPS. It runs at a consistent 720p. And while 720p isn't as good as the other platforms, I don't expect it to be. The native resolution on the handheld version is 720p, so I kind of view that 720p in handheld mode as kind of like the baseline. Like that's the target resolution, and everything you get in docked after that is just kind of bonus fluff resolution-wise. And 30 FPS is half of 60 FPS like it runs on other platforms. But again, that's going to come down to personal preferences. Not that 60 FPS is unobjectively better than 30 FPS. But for many, many people, 30 FPS is an acceptable gaming experience. And if that wasn't the case, there wouldn't be so many games on Xbox, even Xbox One X and PlayStation 4 Pro running at 30 FPS. We can't start treating 30 FPS like this barrier to entry into gaming if you're just going to come after Switch and not go after the Xbox and PlayStation 4 as well. PC Master Race, all people want. But if you're going to say 30 FPS is unacceptable in 2017, then you need to go after the other platforms as well. But he's not going to do that because those other platforms, might run at 30 FPS, but then give you a higher resolution in exchange. I feel like it is something that developers should allow us to choose, right? Like, if I could play NBA 2K18 at 600p, but get 60 FPS, I kind of agree with him that the resolution sacrifice would be worth it for the 60 FPS. But one thing we have to consider as well in all of this, when he's talking about all these things, a lot of these issues, especially with a Nintendo first-party game like Xenoblade Chronicles 2, the issue isn't the hardware. The issue is the developer. Xenoblade Chronicles 2 doesn't come out on any other platform. There is no excuse for it to run bad. That game, as much as I really, really enjoy that game, it feels, optimization-wise, like it was rushed. It feels, like the game itself feels complete, the story feels complete, the gameplay feels complete. It feels like a great game, but it feels like the technical optimizations of that game were never fully completed before they released it. And I don't know why that's the case. I feel like they could have delayed this game, brought it out in April or March next year, and not only maybe garnered more attention after the holiday season, but also had a better running game. Because they've already publicly stated we're aware of the issues, we're working on patches. You might expect that for a third-party game like the NBA 2K18 trying to make day and date with other versions. Xenoblade Chronicles 2 doesn't really have that excuse. So I understand where he's coming from that perspective. But again, that's not because of the system. It's not running like dog crap because of the system here. It's running poorly because the developers did a bad job optimizing. And the reason I can say that is because look at all of the other Nintendo games on the platform that are running at 60 FPS, running at a smooth 30 FPS, running at 900p. Like, there are tons of examples of Nintendo games already on the platform running way, way better than Xenoblade Chronicles. That just means that Monolith Soft themselves did a bad job optimizing a game. One bad example doesn't nullify all the good examples. Anyways, let's move on.
Since when does something being portable excuse it from being lacking? Should I buy a gaming laptop and say, hey, it's better than your 1080 Ti and SLI with your 8-core CPU and 32 gigabytes of RAM? Because guess what? My laptop is portable? Hell no. I do not care if it's portable. I do not care if it's not portable. I do not care if it's a hybrid. I do not care if you play it through a bat signal in the sky. The method and the means are irrelevant. The result is all that matters. And the result is a machine that struggles to have steady frame rates and a machine that plays games at resolutions that are low. Now, if we had low resolutions but high frame rates, you know what? I could deal with that because I understand that the machine is underpowered, but I can deal with that. Hell, bring out a 640 by 480 SD option and make these games 60 frames per second. I could deal with that. Just make the menus and the text in 720 or 1080p or whatever the tablet goes up to, fine. But when I'm playing games that are piss poor resolution combined with crappy frame rates, that is unacceptable. That is
okay. For the large part, I agree. But the issue isn't Nintendo Switch. The issue is developers. The issue's been developers for a long, long time. And maybe it's not even on the developers. It could be on the people paying for the game to be made, the publishers. But here's the deal. The reason that 60 FPS used to be standard on home consoles and even portable devices, believe it or not, and isn't standard today is because They are choosing to pump visuals over frame rates. So let's say, for an example, that you're okay if the game was running at standard def, right? Like he says, game runs at standard def as long as the menus and text are at 720p, but the game runs at 60 FPS. That's possible for practically every game released on the platform. The problem is that just sacrificing resolution doesn't get you to 60 FPS, right? You need to sacrifice particle effects, you need to sacrifice lighting effects, and shading effects, and shadows, and texture quality. And you get to this point where they can do this. There is not a single game released on Switch to date that could not hit 60 FPS if they made appropriate sacrifices to do it. Here's the thing. Developers don't care, because that doesn't sell. What sells is pretty visuals. You think Nintendo wanted to advertise a 720p version of Breath of the Wild? No, they advertised, every commercial you saw was essentially the 900p version of Breath of the Wild, because it looks the best. Because the visuals are great. Odyssey has a lot of visual effects. They could remove some of those effects, make it 1080p even, and run at 60 FPS. But they don't, because they want to push out visual quality that makes people get excited. So here's the thing. What you're asking for can happen, but it's on the developers to do it. This is the same reason 60 FPS and 1080p even is not standard on the base Xbox One and PlayStation 4, and that 4K 60 FPS isn't standard on PlayStation 4 Pro and Xbox One X, because it can happen. But developers need to start realizing that 60 FPS is more important than resolution. That 60 FPS is more important than particle effects. But that's not the way the market works right now. So this isn't even a Nintendo Switch issue. This is an issue across the gaming industry. There are games that, even on a 1080 Ti with an 8700K, that you run on ultra settings on your PC, that's going to struggle to even get close to 60 FPS, because they don't care about hitting the 60 FPS mark. That doesn't matter to them. Now, granted, you could tweak it and hit that mark customizing things, but there's no excuse that on the top end of the top-end hardware out there, I realize there's, the $3,000 Titan Voltas now, and blah, 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 blah. I get it, but, or Titan V, maybe it's not Volta, maybe I'm confusing that with AMD, but reality is that it should be able to hit 60 FPS as a bare base bone at ultra settings, but unfortunately, that's not what developers are trying to do.
Again, it doesn't matter the method, it doesn't matter the means, it is the result. And the fact that people are making excuses and damage controlling 392p, 600p, 24 frames per second, friend codes, a lack of voice chat, pathetic and miserable online because it's portable is absolutely pathetic. It is. It's pathetic. It is a piece of poop you can take with you. That doesn't change it, that it's still a piece of poop. Now, you know what? I said I was going to make another video of what I would like to see with the Switch, but why not combine it into this video? Because I know you moronic idiots, you haters Nintendo fans, are going to call me a hater when I own more Nintendo games and more Nintendo consoles than you ever will. I mean, you still can't accept the fact that the Wii was a miserable piece of trash. You spent 5 years damage controlling, but yet you get 1 W in 5 years of L's, and you act like you're actually winning something.
What the hell did I just listen to? I'm not going to sit here and get on defense force for the Wii. It is not my favorite Nintendo platform. It's not even in my top 5. But it's a platform that I understand its existence. I understand why it needed to exist. And even if it wasn't a massively appealing system to me, beyond some of the games, right? Twilight Princess and Super Mario Odyssey. There's probably about a good 15 to 20 games on that platform that I love. Reality is that Wii wasn't exactly my kind of thing. I still bought one. I still had one. I still bought games for it. But it just really wasn't my cup of tea. As a gamer, I played a lot more on PC then. I played a lot more on Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3. Still on my PlayStation 3. In fact, it's upstairs, connected to my TV in the living room. So, I understand his stance against Wii, but there's plenty of reasons to defend it. not everybody cares about the same things in gaming that he cares about. And I feel like this is what I hate about fanboyism. Both from Nintendo fans and PlayStation and Sony and PC and just gamers on the whole. It's that there's no understanding amongst all of those gamers that there are different preferences in gaming. As an example, the Wii. You could think the Wii is a crappy platform. The Wii was definitely not a very good platform for my gaming desires. However, it was perfect for my sister. It was perfect for my mom and my dad, and perfect at parties. It was perfect for situations where I got to game with my grandmother. It was perfect for introducing technology that ended up being used in hospitals to help actual patients get better in terms of making their therapy more entertaining. It actually got several retirement homes that have a lot of elderly people. It got them up and physically more active and making them more healthy by playing games like Wii Sports. I know this, it seems stupid to bring up this kind of stuff because it's stuff that personally doesn't matter to me in terms of how it impacts my life, but it's something I recognize is good. Like, these are wholly positive things for other people. And I recognize that while Wii wasn't for me, and it sucks having a long generation from Nintendo of something that's not for me, it's still one of those things where there were other options on the market for me to play. So I played them, and I enjoyed them, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with choice, and there's nothing wrong with different devices that cater to different needs. Right now, Xbox One X caters to the needs of gamers who don't want to buy a PC or want a more convenient way of playing 4K PC-like quality on a TV. On those 4K TVs they got this holiday that are now at the price of 1080p TVs. Or the price of 1080p TVs were 4 years ago. And I understand that that's a desire that exists out there. I'm not denying that desire. That's fine. That's great. It is the most powerful home console ever created, and there is a place in the market for that. I understand that the PlayStation 4 and the PlayStation 4 Pro, that its place in the market as well is understandable, not just because of all the exclusives it had, but because up until the Xbox One X, there really wasn't a reason to buy an Xbox One per se, unless you really, really were into certain specific exclusives or the controller. I love the Xbox One controller. I know you can buy one and make it work on PlayStation 4, blah, 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 but I'm a big fan of the Xbox One controller over the PlayStation 4 controller. But whatever, there's still a reason for it to exist in the marketplace, especially since I had the Blu-ray player, and that's always like a nice multimedia reason to get it, because a lot of times when you build PCs today, you don't even have an optical drive. So that's another kind of reason to get a home console as well. Getting the PC was obvious. It's always been obvious. You want the best of the best possible gaming experience in terms of even VR, in terms of, and that's another thing PlayStation has going for it, is a cheaper way to get into virtual reality. It's not the greatest virtual reality ever, but it's a way to get into it that's better than sticking a phone in a helmet. So you want the best gaming situation possible. You have a PC, right? You get your high-end specs, you get your 4K, you get your 120 in FPS, or if it's just 1080p gaming, game at 300 FPS if you want, or whatever the case may be. PCs exist for that highest of the high end of the gaming spectrum. Nintendo, believe it or not, their most popular platforms have never been their home consoles. That's always been their portables. Because the portable systems provide something that the rest of the game industry is generally not catering to, outside of when Sony had the PSP and the PS Vita. And that is that people like the convenience of taking games on the go. Now, granted, your phones can do it, but your phones aren't playing NBA 2K18, the full version. The version of NBA 2K18 on your phone, it's not even you're not even playing real games. It's like simulations. It's like MLB The Show on PlayStation 4 isn't running on your mobile device. You can play Tap Sports Baseball, but you're not playing a full-fledged MLB game on your phone. It's just not possible to even come close to comparing to other systems. When you talk about NBA 2K18 as an example, running at 720p and 30 FPS, that's at least a comparable and comparable, something you can compare to the other platforms. It is worse, but if you tried to take that same experience over to a phone, sure, maybe on those phones they have it running at 1080p or 1440p, and it ain't running at 30 FPS, and it ain't a playable experience. So this is something you have to consider as well, that all these different platforms provide something different in the marketplace that is desirable to different people. So even if you do not like the Wii and you think it's crap, you still have to recognize that the reason it's selling so well is there is a market for it. The market doesn't have to include you, and that has to be okay, right? For a lot of the people that defend Switch because of the portability factor, that's because to them the number one thing that matters is taking games on the go. The frame rate, the FPS, the frame rate, the resolution, the visual quality standards, none of that matters to all the people that own the 3DS. They've been playing at like 240p in some of those games. They've been playing sub HD for 6 years. They don't care about any of that. They care about having games to play on the go. That's what matters the most to them. So we have to consider, the reason we have to consider the portability factor of the Switch is, one, it's not using older tech. It's just not. The X1 is a very, very recent mobile architecture. Yes, the X2 just came out. Like, it's not the bleeding edge of current mobile technology, but it's right there with the current mobile technology out there. So it is at the upper end of the mobile technology space, and it is dealing in a different space than home consoles and PCs are in, and it is providing you something different that the other platforms are not currently doing. It's really just that simple. And it's okay for platforms to provide different things for different consumers, even if that consumer doesn't include you. We have to be okay with that. The only way to end the wars, to end the battles, is to realize that there isn't one platform that provides the needs of every consumer. For some consumers, portability does matter. The sacrifices to make games portable are acceptable to them because portability matters to them more than these things that matter to you. Until we reach this point as a gaming community, we're always going to be bickering back and forth. We're always going to be touting which console is best. The last video I made and put up, I talked about we need to bow to the king. And I was talking about the Switch outselling the Wii U. And a lot of people took that as a fanboy-like remark that I'm saying the Switch is the king of the mountain. They are the number one platform in the world. Let's bow to them. I understand. In hindsight, I get why people thought that, especially when you have Nintendo Prime attached to my channel. That's not at all what I meant. I meant that it's the king of Nintendo, and I didn't clarify that in the video. When I talk about the Switch being the king of anything, or being at the top of the mountain, I'm specifically talking about Nintendo, because it is on a pace faster than the 3DS. It at the time of releasing this video, it's probably outsold the Wii U worldwide. The Switch is currently Nintendo's highest performing platform on the market, so it is the king of all their devices. It is outselling month to month the 3DS. Games are outselling the 3DS month to month, and the 3DS was their previous king. So that's what I meant. And until we can get, I feel like the reason that a lot of people took that the way that they did is because, I hate saying this, but I don't think even the fan base here at Nintendo Prime is as genuinely acceptable of all these different platforms and why they need to exist. And I'm not going to call out anyone specifically here. I mean, there's some comments I read that I'm like, I can tell that they kind of had some bias there for one way or another. And I have admitted bias for Nintendo. But I understand why other platforms exist. I understand why I have desires to own those platforms. Why I'm a PC gamer still. I have all the same desires some of those people have. But I also have a desire for convenience. And right now, Switch is the most convenient platform. For my needs, anyways. So, yeah, let's just see if there's anything else he has to say.
Like, this is absolutely absurd. Like, you people are calling me a performance whore, a frame rate. God forbid I want my games to, function and control properly, because, that would be ideal in a game for your game to function and control properly. It's not like I'm saying we need 4K graphics. I just want a steady frame rate, a high frame rate. Like, I can't even get 720p at 30. Like you're acting like somebody asking for a 720p lock 30 experience is asking for a lot in 2017. Like, how is that asking for a lot in 2017? Like, first of all, games shouldn't even be running that low in 2017. It's just absolutely pathetic. It's just absolutely miserable. But again, you know, I'm hating.
It's not asking for a lot. So let's talk about the developers.
Conversely, a game like WWE 2K18, which runs like absolute dog, oh, that's a lazy developer. Oh, they gotta optimize their game. Well, why does Nintendo get special rules here? Why do they get special rules and privileges that other developers don't?
I didn't know it was a special rule and privilege to ask developers to optimize their games to the platform they're on. As I've noted earlier, several games only run at 30 FPS, and sometimes they don't even hit 30 FPS on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, and we need to hold those developers accountable. When this happens on a platform, you need to hold developers accountable. I held NBA 2K18 accountable when it launched. And they fixed pretty much everything that I had an issue with. They didn't make it 60 FPS. I've been open about how I wish they would have lowered resolution or whatever they needed to do to hit 60 FPS. But they didn't. And I understand why that choice was made, but I don't have to like it. And I feel like there should be what like Fire Emblem Warriors did, where you have that 30 FPS, higher resolution, higher looking, higher visual fidelity version, and then you can also select the 60 FPS version that is smoother gameplay, but obviously cut back in features and particle effects or whatever the case may be, resolution. Fire Emblem Warriors to me provided the perfect example of how games should be handled on Switch. I'm not holding these developers to different standards. I'm saying we need to hold them accountable for all standards across all platforms. If, to you personally, Blackbond and other people that agree with you, if you value 60 FPS as a gaming experience over everything else, we need to hold the whole industry accountable. Not just a platform holder. There's nothing on Switch that prevents games from running at 60 FPS. Yes, games are going to look visually as pleasing if they're ports of games from other platforms with better hardware running at 60 FPS. And you admitted yourself, Blackbond, that's an understandable sacrifice to hit 60 FPS. But they're not willing to make those sacrifices. Yes, they are sacrificing resolution, right? But resolution isn't the only sacrifice that can be made. Resolution itself is not the only thing you can cut back. So developers and publishers and people porting games are not putting in the time to get things correct. Not yet, anyways, for some of the games. As I said, there are examples of games that run fine. Skyrim, does decent, especially compared to other console versions that run at 30 FPS. But again, if that's not acceptable to you, then why weren't you complaining that it ran at 30 FPS before? We had 60 FPS games on the NES. We should have stayed at 60 FPS every single gaming generation for every game ever released. But it didn't stay that way. So again, it is important to understand the difference that we're not giving Nintendo special treatment here in terms of saying that that developers need to optimize their games better. This needs to happen across the board. This isn't just a Nintendo problem. It's never going to be just a Nintendo problem. It's a PC problem. It's a Xbox problem. It's a PlayStation 4 problem. This happens with various developers all over the place. So, WWE 2K18, let me give you that as an example. It's dog crap on every platform it's on. But it's a Nintendo Switch issue. Don't chastise the developers of the game at all. No, it's not their problem. But it is. They're the ones that are choosing not to make the sacrifices necessary to hit that frame rate because that frame rate's not important to them. They're the ones choosing that if frames dip a little bit below 30 at times, say to 28 or 25, they find that to be acceptable because the gaming community has accepted it. You want it to change, start holding them accountable. In summary, I understand a lot of his arguments and a lot of his concerns, and all of those are why Switch is not for him. All those reasons that people attack Switch is why Switch isn't for them. But the same reason that people defend Switch is exactly why Switch is for them. When people say, but it's portable as an excuse, that excuse is because that portability factor is the number one thing that matters to them. Being able to take Switch on the go and play AAA games on the go matters to them. Matters to them more than the resolution, matters to them more than the frame rate. And that's hard to accept for people that that stuff matters to them the most. And it does feed into the idea that sub 30 FPS is acceptable, that 30 FPS is acceptable, that sub HD is acceptable. And that sucks. It does suck. Games don't have to be that way on Switch. Switch supports 720p native on the screen. Switch can go up to 60 FPS. That is natively supported. But developers don't target those kind of specs on the platform, not just because they got to cut it back because it's mobile technology. Obviously, sacrifices would have to be made, but because they don't value that as a sale point. They don't value, oh, we need to hit 1080p in docked mode on Switch to sell our game. Oh, we need to hit 60 FPS on Switch to sell our game. Oh, we need to hit a consistent 30 FPS on Switch to sell our game. They know they don't need to do that. They don't even do that consistently on PC sometimes. So they know they don't need to do that. But a lot of us are still okay, or at least semi-okay with it, because it is portable. I'm gaming more today in 2017 than I have been in the past 7 years because of Switch. Because the convenience it's providing of playing home console quality games on the go, even at the dog crap, frame rate and resolution it runs at, is less important to me as someone who's a PC guy when I'm on the go than just the ability to play the game on the go at all. Portability is a very important factor. Very important and cannot be dismissed. It cannot be ignored. You can choose to ignore it. You can choose to say it's not an excuse. And all you're really proving is that the Switch just isn't the platform for you. As I said earlier, and I feel like I'm a broken record at this point, the most important thing about your decision on what platform you should buy is what matters to you. It's not about fanboyism. It's not about anything other than choice, consumer choice. You have a choice as a consumer to not buy these games. We have a choice as consumers to also buy these games. I own Doom on Switch proudly. I own NBA 2K18 on Switch proudly. They are games I enjoy. They are games that I have played the PC counterparts of. I have played the Xbox counterparts of. I have played the PlayStation 4 counterparts of. I've seen the game at better. And still, when I'm on the go, I can't play those games. But I can play it on my Switch. Even with the sacrifices in place. It feels okay. It could feel better. But it's more acceptable to me than a lot of games I play on this. Anyways, folks, I'm Nathaniel Rufflegents from Nintendo Prime. If you like this video, you know what to do. If you dislike the video, that's alright. Hit that dislike button. It's kind of a strange video. I don't do a lot of videos like this. It's the first one, actually, I've done. But it needed to get out there. I felt like there's some misunderstanding about consumer choice and what matters to certain consumers. But it is what it is. If you like what we do here, hit that subscribe button, hit the bell icon so you get notified on every video we make and all of our live streams. Otherwise, folks, I will catch you guys in the next one.